All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over this weekend's MMA card, which just as a heads up, it does start at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so make sure you get your lineups in. So I'm going to go back and forth between the Inside the Distance prop site and the DraftKings site, but I'll let you know that on TrueDFS.com, we now have my projections and ownerships up there. So if you want to use the sheets up there, you can feel free to go there. For now, I think you can sign up for free and access them for free. That's just going to be for a little while, though. We're gonna be making those behind the paywall in a couple of weeks. So you can go to the site and look at the projections and things like that. So with respect to this card, I'm going to look at it from a slate perspective and then go fight by fight, sort of, to see how it plays out. I'll show you what I mean. So we start off with the seminal point of this card is that Manon Fiorot was priced at 8,700. Not even. Where is she? Moreau is somewhere. For whatever reason, I can't. Fiorot, sorry. So she's 8,500, priced as if she was like a $1.40 favorite. That's what she was going to be against her other opponent, which, by the way, she was going to be a lock in that also. But that opponent dropped out and is now replaced by someone, Riki, who Fiorot is now a 5-to-1 favorite, priced as if she is a 140 favorite. So this is a mathematical, theoretical lock. So before we even go on, I mean, this is, you can talk about reasons to fade if you want. Number one is obviously ownership. I mean, she's going to be like insanely owned. But what I found in the times I've been playing MMA when these things have come up is that they've not been as highly owned as I would have thought. I could go over some examples, but you would think that in a situation like this, they would literally be, 90% owned. But in GPPs, people are, just fishing around to be contrarian, so they'll play a lot of guys. And I don't think Fiorot is going to be as owned as she should be. But that is one reason to fade her. The other is you could argue that, women's MMA, you don't have quite the same upside. So if this goes to a decision, maybe she doesn't pay off the 8,500. But what people forget is that, just because that situation exists doesn't mean she doesn't also have upside. I mean, this is a very, very talented fighter. She knocked out her last opponent, I think, in one round, and she could just take Richie's head off, within 60 seconds. And if that happens, then you have a 110-point victory of an 8,500 fighter that if you don't have, you're dead. So I'm going to start by locking Fiorot in. If she loses, then that's fine. The other thing you could argue is that Riki's path to victory is more grappling. Okay, fair enough. Riki's probably going to be like 6,800 by the time her pricing comes out, but I'm not doing it. I'm going to start with locking Fiorot in. The next thing you have to remember about this card is, again, until they change the algorithms, these five-round fight main events are just kind of, again, mathematical locks, especially when you have this pricing of 8,200, 8,000. Again, neither of these fighters are particularly, great finishers or anything like that, but just to have that 5-round floor is just too strong, So you're going to want to play one of these two. So let's just put Rosenstreich in for now. I really don't have much of an opinion between the two. Actually, I would say that Rosenstreich probably has more likelihood of a finish than Sakai. But then again, Sakai, if it goes to 5 rounds, you're getting 5 rounds of volume, which may even be a better score than, say, a 3rd-round finish for Rosenstreich, if that makes any sense. So when you start with those two fights, locking in Fiorot and then picking one of the two, Rosenstreich, Sakai, then again, what you're going to have to try to do is find you have to find key fights that rate to finish inside the distance, and then you have to find fighters with kind of high grappling upside, as your preferred favorites. And then you have to try to find underdogs with some decent win equity that could kind of fill out your card. So with that kind of as the background of the slate, I'm going to go over the particular guys that I think have upside that you could put in. So the first fight here, this Levitt-Puelles fight, I think Levitt is one of the better favorites. He's got a little better inside the distance prop than some of the other big favorites. Like you see, Levitt right here. This is about a pick 'em to go under 2.5 rounds, and most of it is with him. So that's very, very fair. So I think he's a pretty good favorite to include. I do not like Puelles too much as an underdog, but again, you're going to need to kind of shuffle some of these underdogs as to fill out your lineup. So it is possible I play Puelles, but not because I want to. It's because you're going to have to play some of these guys. Zalal Woodson. This is a fight where if I play anybody on this fight, it's going to be the Zalal side. I don't think Woodson has the upside. The inside the distance prop is very, very poor. The only thing I would say is that if Zalal wins, Zalal has a little more grappling upside, which scores a little bit better. And in addition, if Zalal loses, Zalal might be able to get a couple of takedowns, which might end up scoring enough points in a loss, maybe. Overall, not particularly thrilled with this, and this fight is not going to be a priority for me. But if anybody, I would take Zalal. So Jones-Patrick is this is a tough fight, man, because you have Mason Jones, who's 9,500, who everybody loved. I mean, he put in a really, really good effort against Mike Davis in his debut as an underdog. He lost, but he was terrific, and everybody's been waiting to play him. And DraftKings really screwed it to people. They put him at 9,500, and 9,500 for a guy with this very, very, I don't want to say fishy inside the distance prop. I mean, it rates to be about a pick 'em to go under 2.5, which makes it very similar to the Levitt fight. But the problem is that Mason Jones is 9,500, so to pay off that price is going to be very difficult unless really, really goes his way. I mean, he's got to really beat the guy senseless pretty much over the course of a couple of rounds or get a first-round finish to get that done. So you'll see when you build lineups, if you start playing Mason Jones, you're starting to really start to get strangled with respect to your lineups. One thing I will not be doing is playing Patrick. I do not think he's a live underdog, so that I'm going to be not playing him. Eric Maricani. All right, so this fight, very similar. I think that Maricani is similar to Mason Jones in that they both have very, very good win odds, but their price is just so big at 9,400. At least Maricani, I would say, has that kind of grappling upside where he could control a guy, control Kirk for like a full 2 rounds or something if he doesn't get that first round finish, where maybe he pays off the 9,400. But it's tough. It is definitely tough. I would say so far of the 3 big favorites, I guess I would rank Levitt first, then Maricani, then Mason Jones, just because of the price, I do think that Kirk has some win upside. Maricani's not particularly good striking, so if somehow Kirk survives and gets into a striking match, maybe he ekes out a decision. And Kirk at 6,800, I mean, you win at 6,800. I don't care how many fantasy, what your upside is. I mean, you're probably going to be on the optimal. I would say probably it's a good chance on the optimal if you win at 6,800, depending on how your other 9,100 guys go, right? But I do think he's live. All right, Salikov Trinaldo. So let's take a look at the inside the distance props here for Salikov Trinaldo. Where'd he go? Down here? Oh, here, down. So again, this is a little fishy, man. I'm not particularly thrilled with this fight. I'm probably going to be passing. You just don't have that finishing upside of these two fighters, and it's not as if they're 88K. You know, they're both, well, not they're both. I mean, Trinaldo, if you want to take a shot at an underdog, I guess you could try him at 7,100. But I'm not going to be playing Salikov at 9,100. Like he, for me, is not one of my favorite favorites. I would much prefer any of the 9K guys that I mentioned before over Salikov just because of the upside. But again, Trinaldo, you want to throw him in your underdog pool? Fine by me. Boser, I don't like at all at 8,900. Again, you know, you go look at the inside the distance prop, and it's just very, very poor. I mean, it's, you know, it's a -140 to go over 2.5 rounds, almost, you know, 250 in the first 1.5 rounds. And Boser is not really a wrestler, you know, so you're not going to get that control time. If anything, you know, Lafifi, or is that how you pronounce it, is probably my preferred play if I had to play someone from this fight. Again, I think Lafifi, because of that grappling, he becomes very live on DraftKings. Because number one, he could win, right? If he gets Boser taken down a couple of rounds, then, you know, you could win 2 rounds and get the dub, you know. Or if you get a couple of takedowns and then you lose, you might be able to get there even in a loss. So for me, Boser would be a huge pass, and Lafifi would be the only person I'd play from this fight. There's another one, De La Rosa Lipsky. First of all, Lipsky I don't like. I don't like Lipsky as a dog at all. De La Rosa, again, it's a very, very healthy price tag at 9,300. The only thing that she has going for her is that she can take Lipsky down and control her, right? So if she does that over the course of a couple or 3 rounds, maybe she gets enough control time where she gets it done, but she's not the type that's going to come and just like pound away, I don't think, and get all those significant strikes also. So for her to pay off 9,300 is going to be rough. So maybe I'll play a lineup or two, but I still prefer the guys that I mentioned before, you know, Levitt, even Marcani, and Mason Jones at that price tag, preferred to De La Rosa. All right, Breeze Arroyo, or Ahoyo, depending on how you're pronouncing. I don't like Arroyo as one of the underdogs, but this is my pitch for Breeze, and this is a narrative that I've been kind of doing pretty well with. The reason why Breeze is not getting as much as much support is that there's the narrative that he is just has a terrible fight IQ, that he has mentally deficient, and, you know, he gets upset, you know, and all this stuff. And I find that narrative a bit overblown. I've seen it in the last several cards. Fighters that fit that description just do well anyway. You know, if things go if you have a fight you can win, you'd be surprised how little your fight IQ matters sometimes. So I think that Breeze is actually somewhat underrepresented here. Unrepresented. So for me, I do like Breeze in this spot. I actually would make Breeze maybe just about the same as Levitt with respect to my favorites. Again, I just think there's kind of an inherent unwillingness to play these guys that have the bad fight IQ, or they're just kind of like out there or something like that. But, you know, things go your way. You know, it is a physical battle, and I think that Breeze is a very, very strong favorite, actually. All right, so this one is another fight you're going to have to target, this Todorovic Rodriguez. You'll look at the inside the distance prop here, and this is rates to almost finish in the first round and a half. And there's a huge favorite to go 2 rounds or less, or, you know, less than 1.5 rounds. So this one, I would say, is kind of a must-have. So I would play either, and I don't have much of an opinion. I think that the line is fair. So I think you want to play either Todorovic or Rodriguez. So basically what's happening here is, depending on how many lineups you play, you're probably going to want to play, this is what I'm going to probably do, in the hand builds, Fiorot, one of Rosenstreich Sakai, one of Todorovic Rodriguez, and then just kind of just fill out the rest and shuffle. And that's probably what I'm going to do in my hand builds. I think I'm going to let the optimizers kind of help me get some of the other MME stuff in, just in case, you know, just in case though either these 2 fights bust or whatever it is. Fiorot's probably going to get locked in regardless. But in the hand builds, I think this is what I am going to do. I'm going to take one of these two in this fight, one of these two in this fight, lock in Fioreau, and then shuffle. But this is a very, very important fight that you want to target. Baeza, Ponzinibbio. Here's one again, which is like right on the cusp. It's got a good enough inside the distance prop. What I will say is that, you know, it's an interesting matchup because you have Baeza, who's kind of the younger guy with the upside, and you have Ponzinibbio, who's a little more experienced. You just don't know whether Baeza is going to have, you know, is ready to beat him yet. So, I mean, if you wanted to play this way, you could also consider this a key fight. You know, the thing that says going forward is it's 8,300 and 7,900. So, you know, you could make the argument that you want to take somebody from that fight and then someone from this Todorovic fight, right? And then, you know, shuffle the other two. That's another way you can play. You'll see that this is actually a very common theme. Dolizzi against Staropoli. One really good take I heard is that actually what Dolizzi has going for him is that he's going to be just much bigger. Dolizzi used to fight at much bigger weight classes, and Staropoli not really. Dolizzi kind of burned everybody last week. Everybody kind of liked him. He also does have kind of an inherent bias, and when you're ever named like Roman, people think, you know, you're like much better than you are for some reason. So they thought that he was going to like just destroy like Trevin Giles, and he did nothing. I mean, he just had terrible volume. I don't know what he was thinking, but you get now an under the distance prop, which is just awful. So I don't believe that I'm going to be targeting this fight. But, you know, you want to include Staropoli and maybe your dog pool, possibly, maybe. You could probably be part of my shuffle. I don't think the lead is going to end up being part of my shuffle, though. All right, one last fight, and here's a very interesting one because you have a very, very strong inside the distance prop, and part of it is generated by the fact that Walt Harris, if he's going to win, it's very likely that it is in the first round. I mean, he's going to come out swinging, trying to go for the KO, and if he does not knock Tybura out in the first round, it's going to be rough going for him. So you could, and then the question is, again, is Tybura have enough upside to pay off, what is he, 8,700? Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible, you know, like if Harris really gasses out and Tybura just basically sits on him for 2 rounds and pounds away, grounds and pounds him and gets maybe a 3rd round finish or something, maybe that is enough. So you could actually, if you wanted to, consider this kind of a key fight. You know, so from a card which originally looked a little bit, you know, difficult, you could make this easy. But what ends up happening if you play this way, I mean, if you haven't figured this out yet, let's say you lock in Fioreau. Let's say you play one of these two. Let's say you play one of the other fights, one of the other fights. Let's say you play, you know what I mean? Let's say of these, you find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 key fights that you need to, you know what I mean, that you're playing. The only way, right, if you play both sides, you got to figure out, and I'll let this be your math problem, like how many lineups do you have to play, first of all, to get all the sides, if you can even get them. You know what I mean? I can't do it, but I think you'd be surprised how little you can actually play both sides and play that many key fights. You're going to probably have to get in some of these kind of fishy underdogs anyway. I do think that it's a very, very nice strategic card to attack from an MME perspective. When I say MME, I mean anything from 20 lineups and up. If you are going one lineup, you're just going to have to, you know, I guess. So I will give you my leans, I guess. I will say Fioreau, obviously. Then I will say that of these two, Rosenstreich, I think Rosenstreich probably has more upside. And then I'm going to go to these other fights. Obviously, Tybura is a better than Harris, but you know, if you need the underdog, Harris certainly has the first round upside finish. Same with Rodriguez, Todorovic. I really don't have much of a lean there, honestly. If you can get to Breeze, I would get to him. So if you could get to say Breeze and Levitt, I think those are probably my two favorites as far as those favorites go. So, without putting it up here, well, actually you could. Let's say if I put in Levitt and then let's say I put in Breeze. I mean, I don't need to tell you what you need to do with the other key fights. I mean, you're probably going to have to take both underdogs, and yeah, it's scary, but certainly something you could do. I think I did a really decent job without actually filling in the lineups, getting DraftKings mad at me and going over the slate. And if you want to look at actually projections and run them through optimizers, you can certainly do that by going to truedivs.com, look under my sheets. Aside from that, good luck tomorrow, and let's get it.